this was not palatable to the Knicks. About $5 million in year 1 and 2 in salary, but then the deal jumps to 14.8 in year 3. What's problematic for the Knicks here is if you combine that with the deals for Carmelo and Amari and Tyson Chandler, it puts them way over the luxury tax. That means if they match the deal, Lynn could cost them $30 million out of pocket in year 3 of the deal. So Houston, hello. Perspective from there, we welcome in Craig Ackerman, voice of the Rockets on KILT 610 AM. What are you hearing, Craig, about the future of Jeremy Lin in Houston?
Well, what I'm hearing is that the majority of the Rockets brass who's with the team for Summer League play in Las Vegas still are in the dark officially about what, as you mentioned, New York's intentions are. Obviously, the reports are out there that they've elected to not match, but now we have a little bit less than an hour to go, and they'll believe it when they see it.
What do you mean by in the dark? How do they not know what's about to happen right now?
Well, it's my understanding from some folks I've talked to or with the team there in Vegas, they have not been officially notified one way or the other by the Knicks whether or not they will match this offer sheet. So until that becomes a reality, then obviously between now and 58 minutes from this point, the Knicks obviously have the ability to change their mind. And the report that was in the Times earlier today certainly left the door, albeit slightly ajar, for that to take place. But like I said, once it becomes official, then I'm sure that they'll be ecstatic about it. But right now, there's some cautious optimism, to my knowledge.
Yeah, less than 2 hours. We'll find out the real deal then when that happens. $25 million is what they offered him. For a guy who played 36 games in the NBA last year, what are the Rockets hoping to get from him if he indeed ends up in Houston?
Well, first and foremost, they needed a starting caliber point guard. Kyle Lowry was traded to Toronto. Goran Dragic, who played extremely well with them last year, re-signed with the Phoenix Suns, and so they needed a starting caliber point guard, and they certainly think that Jeremy could fit that bill. Now, granted, his sample size was a very small one with the Knicks, but during that sample size, he certainly proved that he could play at a very high level, and obviously that's the reason why they extended this deal, and that's their hopes going forward.
And the structure of the deal suggests, Craig, that this was the outcome that Lynn had hoped for. Can you give some perspective in Houston as to why he was hoping to be a Rocket and not be a New York Knick?
It's a tough question. I don't know. I mean, on one hand, you realize he's a restricted free agent, and the Knicks were a little bit hamstrung in terms of what they potentially could offer him, and it was in Jeremy's best interest, as it is for every restricted free agent in the NBA, to shop the market and see what their value is on the free agent market, and this is obviously what it turned out to be. Reports were that versus the verbal agreement versus the actual offer sheet that was officially turned in to New York, that last year changed. And so obviously I think the Rockets are trying to gain some sort of a strategic advantage to force the Knicks into making a very difficult decision because of the luxury tax reasons. And at least if reports hold true, that decision was a tough one for them, and they've elected to pass.
He captured the imagination, obviously, of the nation, of the world, for that matter, for those few weeks that he was starring with the Knicks. The Rockets have worked with a marketing giant before, no pun intended there, with Yao Ming. How does that prepare them for Lynn's sanity if he ends up in Houston?
Well, the Rockets, when Yao was here, they were Asia's team. If you recall, the first time that Yao and Yijian Lian played one another, I believe while he was with the Bucks at the time, maybe he was with New Jersey, that game was viewed by 200, 300 million people back in China, which sort of dwarfs numbers of the Super Bowl. So the Rockets have a lot of business interests in China. Many of Yao's teammates received quite a few marketing deals of their own in China that they wouldn't otherwise here in the States. So Jeremy Lin, I don't think the Rockets, they probably obviously lost a little bit of popularity in that regard with Yao's retirement, but if Jeremy indeed becomes a Rocket here in less than 2 hours, then I think they certainly have a great shot of recapturing that market share, and obviously it's potentially something that they could use as a lure for other free agents in the league.
Obviously, he was a national icon in China. This is a different situation with Jeremy Lin. This is going to draw, Craig, a tremendous amount of reaction, particularly in New York, about whether the Knicks did the right thing. Is there genuine excitement in Houston for acquiring Jeremy Lin to the Houston Rockets?
Oh, no question about it. Look, last year nobody saw what was coming. I mean, if anybody says they saw what was coming, they're lying, because nobody saw what was coming. They liked Jeremy Lin last year when they had him in training camp. They wanted to keep him. That was their intention. At the time, they thought if they were going to keep him, he would have been their third point guard behind Kyle Lowry. and Goran Dragic, but with the funky short training camp because of the lockout, they didn't get a whole lot of a long look at him, but they liked him. Their intentions were to keep him, but Johnny Flynn had a guaranteed contract, and they thought at the time that that particular piece would have been more valuable in a potential trade at the deadline than keeping Jeremy on the roster. So that's why they made the decision that they did to release him. Reports obviously are as well that the Knicks were within 24 hours of cutting him as well before he sort of took over the world there for a couple of weeks. So nobody saw this coming. Again, Jeremy's proven that he can play at a very high level, and we'll see whether or not he can sustain that, whether that's in Houston or in New York going forward.
They're going to pay a premium now to get a good long look at him now if he does in Houston. Craig Ackerman, the play-by-play voice of the Houston Rockets down in Houston. Thanks for joining us here on SportsCenter.
All right, guys. Thank you.